guys, I am Dani and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. So if you've never seen one of my videos before, I live at my home in Spring, Texas, which is right north of Houston. We're in Zone 9A if you're interested in that. And we just bought a property about 20 minutes away in Splendora, Texas, to start up a large-scale flower farm with a heavy emphasis on agritourism. So in the past, my Summer Skye Gardens business has been doing more garden design and consultations and coaching. And I started growing cut flowers for sale, and now we're putting it into a really large property, with the focus being on bringing people out to the farm. So you'll see on my channel, I have a lot of old videos on growing flowers and vegetables and landscaping and pollinators, which I'm gonna continue to do. Right now though, there is a heavy emphasis on what we're doing out at the farm property. And today's video is gonna be all about building out a U-pick field. I knew when we were going in to purchase a property that a U-pick field was one of the top things that I wanted to do. I love interacting with people. I love showing people beautiful flowers, and I love going to U-pick fields. You know, we've gone with the kids and picked pumpkins, picked sunflowers, picked berries, and that's a huge draw up here. And there's really like hardly anywhere to go to pick flowers, or if you can go somewhere, it's not close by. You're driving anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So I figured this location is kind of right between some various large suburbs of Houston, and I think it'll be a big draw for people. So what I want to do today is kind of go through the process of picking out the area that you're going to use for a U-pick field, how you want to go through the process of getting it established, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to be growing for our U-pick field for the fall. So I think the first thing you want to think about when you are trying to decide where to put a U-pick field is not only how are you going to grow the flowers there, but also the customer experience. So if you look at our property from the top, you'll see I have several kind of larger areas with some trees here and there that I could use to grow flowers. There are two entrances to a property. There's kind of a side gate that goes along a driveway to the back of the house. And then there's a gate at the front of the property that faces the front of the house. So I decided to use the field. It was kind of up in the front corner to do a U-pick for several reasons. Number one, it was fairly flat, full sun up there, and there was only a couple of small little trees that were in the way that I had to pull out. So I liked that location just for growing. As well, it was toward the front of the property, so if people want to come to the U-pick field, they can just pull in the front gate, park right there, and, you know, walk 10 yards, and they're right at the U-pick area. So, you know, I don't want people having to be trek across, you know, a ways to get to the farm, or have parking be an issue. And if people can't park right inside the gate, they're going to park outside on the street, and it's really short walk to get right there. So I think, you know, of course you want an area that's, hey, sun, access to water, protection from the elements, you know, all those things that you need to actually grow the flowers or vegetables, whatever you're doing for your U-pick. But also think about the customer experience. You know, if you have older people, they don't want to be walking super far to get to the flower field. Is the terrain, you know, pretty even and level? Are there any trip hazards? Are there any brushy areas that could be hiding, you know, snakes? You know, just thinking about how are they going to get in and, you know, get set up, pick their flowers, and then be able to head out and leave. Now, the first thing I'd recommend once you've decided on your site is go ahead and do your soil test. So that's what I did, and it took about 2.5 weeks to get back. I sent it to Texas A&M, which is our local ag extension. And I'll show you just kind of in general how the report goes. I'll give you a close-up of this here shortly. But basically, when you go through and you do a soil test, you want to, you know, look at your whole field area and get soil from about 10 to 15 spots throughout the field. So what I did is once I had my spot figured out, I just kind of did a zigzag pattern across the field. I used a bulb planter, which went down about 6 inches, which is what you want. You want to get the soil that's down about 6 inches. And I put it all in a bucket, mixed it up. You want to pull out any organic material like grass or weeds or roots as much as possible so that all that's left is really just the dirt. And then you want to send off about a pound. So I just pulled out a pound, weighed it, put it in a Ziploc baggie, labeled it with my name and that it's a U-pick field. And then for A&M, filled out their form, mailed it off, paid online. And then, yeah, it took about 2.5 weeks to get back just as an email with a full report. On the report, it kind of breaks down all of the main nutrients as well as some of the micronutrients, the organic matter, and the pH. So let me give you a close-up of how my report came out and kind of what I decided to do with the U-pick area. All right, so you can see sample received on 5/5, printed on 5/19, so a couple weeks. So first thing you notice here is the pH, which mine is really bad. It's very, very acidic. A good pH to grow crops should be between 6.5 to 7. So in order to raise the pH and get it more neutral, you want to add limestone, and this recommended about 10 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Now, what I did with trying to figure out how much of each item I needed to add, I know my U-pick area, it's 50 feet by 120, which is about 7,000 square feet. So for instance, if I'm putting in 10 pounds of lime per 1,000 square feet, then I'm going to have to add 70 pounds of lime. Now it has like a cutoff level. So things that are below this perhaps need to be replaced. So of course they recommended nitrogen. The big ones are going to be nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So they recommended, of course, a lot of nitrogen, a lot of potassium, and then some phosphorus, as well as some magnesium. Now they have a calculator on their website where you can go in and look up common fertilizers or put in numbers yourself, and it will tell you exactly how much you need to use of each product. Another thing to take note of here is the organic matter was 1.1%, which is very poor. Ideally, you want 5 to 10%, and that's going to be like, you know, any healthy bacteria that's in the soil. Is there life? Is there stuff growing? And really, that's what you want to add, you know, to bring up your organic matter. Things like compost or worms or, you know, just green manure, that kind of stuff. So I'll talk about that in just a second. So when I was trying to figure out what kind of fertilizers and amendments that I needed to put into the soil, like I said, I used the website that A&M has where you can do the calculations. And I also just kind of like looked up general fertilizers at some different stores. I looked at Amazon, I looked at Home Depot, Lowe's, and Tractor Supply, and actually found like a really good general purpose fertilizer at Tractor Supply that's used for pasture fields for grazing livestock. So I will link that below, but I found that when I plugged that number in, it gave me kind of the most economical recommendation for adding fertilizer. So that fertilizer adequately covered my nitrogen. It added some phosphorus and potassium, but it also recommended, hey, you're going to have to come back and add additional phosphorus and potassium. And I found those fertilizers on Amazon, and I will link those below as well. So it told me like how many pounds of each supplement per 1,000 square feet I needed to add. So I just multiplied that by 7, ordered, you know, as many bags as I needed, and then put out kind of guesstimating, you know, by how many pounds were in each bag, put that out in the field with a fertilizer spreader, and I just walked it back and forth. So I put out lime, I put out the general purpose fertilizer, I added extra phosphate and potassium, and then I also put out azomite minerals. So hopefully getting that all mixed in should dramatically improve the soil. Now, do you have to do a soil test? Some people will say no, but look at my soil being very poor. If I hadn't done a soil test and I just went out there and planted, maybe added a little bit of compost, my plants would do really, really poorly, even just from the pH being too acidic. They wouldn't be able to access the what little nutrients are in the soil, and even if I fertilize them, they still wouldn't be able to access it because it's too acidic, because I didn't add any lime. So I say, if you're really growing, you know, anything and you have no idea how your soil, you know, then I would definitely recommend sending off a soil test first and foremost. And then you can start prepping everything in a couple of weeks. You're waiting on the results to come back. So after I sent off the soil test, I took T-posts and twine and a walking measuring stick and kind of marked off my field. That way I knew exactly where I needed to come in and prepare everything. And then I took the tractor, me and my stepdad took my tractor with the tiller, and we went out there and tilled it up 3 different times. Now, if you have a new field that you're trying to prepare, there's some different ways that you can get it ready for planting. Of course, tilling is one of them. I know a lot of people right now are trying to go to like a no-till method, and that's really overall better for the soil, but better for the organic matter. But as you can see, I have almost no organic matter in my soil. So, and the soil is very poor. So I felt like right now, it's not a big deal if I till. Once I get the soil on a much healthier level within a few years, then I will try not to till in quite as much or do it very, very minimally. Now, if you don't want to till, you could come in and use chemicals to kill the grass and the weeds out there. But I think most of us are along the lines of trying not to use chemicals as much as possible. So it's an option, but in my opinion, not a very good option. You could come in and cover up the area with something like cardboard, a tarp, landscape fabric, which works great, but you have to leave it out there for, you know, maybe a couple of months to really kill everything underneath. And for me, I was trying to get this up and running as soon as possible. So I didn't feel like that was a very good option. So we chose just to till it in. And then lastly, if you have like a big grassy area or grass and weeds area, you could use a sod cutter to pull up the sod. That is very physically demanding. So if you have a small space, I think it's fine if you just go rent one. But if you have a huge field, I do not recommend that at all, because it's really hard to push that thing around. You have to roll up the sod and go, you know, move it somewhere else, and that stuff gets really heavy. So I think, you know, laying down a tarp if you have some time, or tilling it up to remove it is kind of my go-to methods. Now, after we had tilled up the field several times, I went through and kind of hand pulled up some bigger roots that were out there, some clumps of grass or dirt that were kind of all clumped together, and kind of put those to the side. I've been slowly using a rake to kind of rake up some of the dead grass and weeds. Right before I go to plant, I'm going to come in and just add either 1 to 2 inches of compost right on top. I'm not going to till that in. I'm just going to let it sit, and that's what I'm going to directly plant into. Now at this point, I felt it was really important to figure out, you know, how I'm going to set up my drip irrigation, how much landscape fabric do I need. So I decided to draw out the U-pick field on graph paper. So one thing that I'm growing a lot of for the U-pick field for the fall are sunflowers. This is just half of what I'm going to be doing, and it's all sunflowers. So you can see how I drew out each row, each you know, pathway, and calculated with the measurements how much drip tape I'm going to need and how much landscape fabric I'm going to need. So in the U-pick field, I'm doing 4-foot wide beds with 3-foot pathways. So 4 feet, because 4 feet for the beds just to make it look lusher, be able to fit more flowers in, and then 3 feet for the pathways. So it's close enough where I can grow more flowers, but it's wide enough where people can walk through a lot easier. So I think it's really handy to draw it out instead of just kind of guessing or doing stuff on the fly. And this way I can kind of prepare as much ahead of time, maybe inside where it's cooler. and get it all ready. And then once I walk out to the field, you know, just kind of lay everything down. So the first thing that you want to put down after your soil is ready is going to be your drip irrigation, if you're using it. If you're choosing to water with like a sprinkler system or hand watering, then of course you don't need to put anything down. But for me, I like everything to be automated and as much as possible to save myself time and energy. So laying down drip irrigation, so you have a main line that comes off your, you know, water supply that kind of runs along the edge of the field, and then you have drip lines that run down each bed. Depending on how wide they are, what you're growing, you might choose to do 2 drip lines, 3, 4, it just kind of depends. So you lay down your drip irrigation, and then it's time for fabric. Now, because half of my field is going to be sunflowers and I want to direct seed those with my seeder, I'm not going to be using landscape fabric. Plus it's really hard to kind of cut those all down and rip them out with landscape fabric in place at the end of the season. So the rows are just going to be kind of bare dirt. And then on the other half of the field, I'm going to be growing zinnias, basil, and celosia, and those will have landscape fabric. So it's very important that I measure the fabric out, and then I will come through and burn holes ahead of time so that I can just directly plant seeds or plugs into those holes. Now, once you have, you know, your drip irrigation down, your landscape fabric down with staples, you're ready to plant. And at that point, you can go ahead and get stuff in, keep it watered, get it growing. I know with sunflowers, it'll be a couple of months when they're ready to pick. I'm going to succession plant everything because I want to have my U-pick field kind of open up mid-September and run for a couple of months to mid-November. So I need things that are constantly blooming. So the sunflowers are going to have to be going in, you know, every 1 to 2 weeks, and the rest of the plants kind of every month for a few months. I'm probably going to start, the sunflowers are going to be direct seeded, but the zinnias, basil, and celosia, I'm going to try to start inside and then transplant. Now, because I'm doing that, I need to make sure I have enough seeds. I need to make sure I have enough seeds for everything. So on my drawing, I went in and figured out, like, okay, these are the varieties I want to grow. This is how many rows I want to put. How many rows am I going to have? How many seeds am I going to have? And that's, you know, that's just doing a lot of math. You know, how far apart do you plant your sunflowers? Usually 4 to 6 inches. And then, you know, how many can you fit in a 4-foot wide bed by 50 feet long? And that'll kind of tell you how many seeds you're going to end up needing, as well as, you know, if I'm going to transplant stuff. So the zinnias, basil, and celosia, you know, those are bigger, bushier plants. Plant those about 12 inches apart. So same thing. This is, you know, how many rows of zinnias I'm going to have. This is how many seeds I'm going to need. So, you know, how many seeds do I need to start inside? How many trays is that? And then also figuring out, like, okay, if I want stuff blooming by mid-September with zinnias, you want to backtrack 2 to 3 months. That's when you need to be starting your seeds inside and then planting them out a few weeks after they've been in. So it's a lot of planning and math, but I think that's really helpful to do it well and be successful, and make sure you have enough flowers and you're making use of your space and your time. Okay, so fun part, let me kind of show you what we're going to be growing in the U-pick field this fall. Almost all my seeds are from Dani's, just because I ordered in bulk, so I got free shipping and they have good prices compared to everybody else. I did buy some varieties from Sunflower Selections because I came across these later on, and with shipping it was a little cheaper to get just a few packets that I needed from Sunflower Selections. So I'm gonna mention these. I have a few that I've actually grown right now that I'll show you on film, but if I don't have it growing right this second, I'll just put up a picture right here. These pictures are gonna be from either Sunflower Selections or Dani. So the first one is Pro Cut Horizon, which is like a beautiful ombre effect sunflower. It's pollenless, which I think is really important for cutting. And the thing about Pro Cut Horizon is it's supposed to be more up of an upright facing flower instead of like a traditional sunflower. So that's really nice to use in bouquets. And then I'm gonna have Gold Rush, which I believe is a branching sunflower and does have a little bit of pollen. Same with Terracotta. So those are all from Sunflower Selections. And then in Johnny's, I'm gonna be growing Sunrich Summer Provence, which I believe is a branching. Oh gosh, I can't remember. I haven't grown this one before. I have a handful that are branching and a handful that are single stem. So, but these look really pretty. I'm gonna have a lot of the Pro Cuts. So Pro Cut Plum and Red. Let's see. And those are like darker colors. So I definitely want to have all of those growing, you know, in the later part of the U-pick season. I'm going to be growing Pro Cut White Light and White Night and Gold Light. Those are really kind of lighter colored sunflowers. Let's see, Summer Breeze Mix. Those are branching. That's just like a lot of different types and colors. I'm going to be planting Double Quick Orange. Those are single stem and they're more fluffy looking. Let's see what else is in my pile here. Oh, Lemonade. That's a branching and that's like a really pretty bright yellow. Let's see, I said Gold Light. I have a lot of seeds. White Night. Sunrich Summer Provence. I think I already mentioned that one. Double Quick Orange. I think that's it for the sunflowers. Oh, Chocolat. So that's a branching and that's like a darker colored one. So that'll be going out there as well. So let me show you real quick a couple of the sunflowers I'm growing right now. So this is Gold Light. So it's a single stem. It's pollenless and it has like the classic kind of yellowish orange sunflower petals, but in the middle, instead of being dark like a normal appearing sunflower, it's gold. So I thought that these are really bright and cheery and kind of go with a lot of different summer flowers. And then another one that I have growing right now, this is White Light. So it has kind of whitish, creamy petals and a gold center. White Night has the same petals, but a really dark center. So I like all of those. All right, so let's look at the other flowers I'm gonna grow. So for the celosia, I'm gonna grow a Sunday mix. So it's gonna just have a lot of different bright colors. And one of the ones I have going right now is Sunday Orange. So I like celosia. They're like these big spiky flowers that really add a lot of interest to a bouquet. They love the heat and they're also make a great dried flower. So I think those will be fun for people to cut. Now, as far as basil goes, I pretty much only grow two varieties. I grow Cinnamon and Mrs. Burns Lemon. So I have both of those in here. So this is the Cinnamon. Smells a little spicier. This one's a little wilty because I just picked it outside, but it has like these darker purplish kind of flowers and the leaves are a little bit darker. And then the Mrs. Burns Lemon, the leaves definitely smell lemony. They're a lighter color and then it has these lighter kind of whitish flowers that will pop up. So those are nice to put in a bouquet. Number one, because it adds greenery. Number two, it adds smell because sunflowers, celosia, and zinnias don't have any smell. And number three, they like the heat. So they're easy to grow in our hot Texas summers. So as for the zinnias, I'm keeping it pretty simple, but we're gonna have a lot of like really pretty varieties. So the first is gonna be a Bennery's Giant Mix. So it's just gonna be bright colored, big fluffy flowers. I don't think I have one in here actually right now, but it'll just be a mix. Gonna do probably, I think, a few rows of that. Another few rows of the Queenie formula. So that's like the Queen Lime series, and you can get just lime, blush, red, orange, peach. So I have a few of those that I've been growing. Let's see. Okay, this one is a Queen Lime Blush. So you can see where it has like that limey greenish color, but then it kind of has this blush that comes in. These will get really, really pretty. The Queen Lime series are probably my favorite. This is a Queen Lime Red. This one's a little faded. There's some that have a little more red in them. And then here is a Queen Lime Orange, but I think these are really pretty with like that ombre effect between the green and then whatever other color. And of course, zinnias make excellent cut flowers. They love the heat and they're easy to grow. And then, oh yeah, the last one that I'll be doing is a cactus flowered mix. So those ones get really big, they're brightly colored, and they have these like twirly, funky petals that kind of go every which way. This is one that I have right now. So you can see how some of the petals kind of curve. The flower heads are a lot bigger. Simple, bright colors, but I think these are really fun in the summer to give you a lot of like big, colorful flowers. Okay, so I think that kind of covers it. If you have any questions or comments, if you've done a U-pick field, you have any suggestions for me, comments for me, or if you have any questions about my process, leave them below, or go follow me on Instagram at Skye Gardens, and I share on there more day-to-day, week-to-week stuff a lot more frequently than I do on my YouTube channel. However, my YouTube channel has way more detail in these videos. But if you are in the Houston area, especially the North Houston area, stay tuned. You can go to my website, summerskyegardens.com, sign up for the newsletter, because I'll be sending out updates and I'll be sending out information about the U-pick field once it's open. I think what I'm going to end up doing for when people come visit is we'll be selling tickets ahead of time online, so we can kind of regulate how many people come out there at a time and see how the flow goes and see how many people we can actually accommodate at a time where it's not like too crowded. I know how many people to expect. I know that I have enough flowers for them, and then have, you know, some set times of the week, and people just come out, they check in, they get their container, and they can go cut. They can stay as long as they like within that window, or as little as they like. One other thing that I want to do is there's a shed that's like right by the U-pick field. It's a little shaded from one of the trees, and I'd like to paint a mural out there so people can go take a selfie with their flowers, because I think that's always so much fun. If you have any suggestions for the mural, let me know. I'm personally thinking about doing butterfly wings so people can kind of stand there in the middle with their flowers and get the butterfly wings behind them, because I really like butterflies. But if you have any other suggestions, just leave me a comment. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hit like, leave me a comment, subscribe to my channel if you like what you've seen and you want to stay tuned for new videos. And I will see y'all in my next video.